what blurted out of my mouth next was like, are you going to kill me? Are you going to take me away? Are you going to steal me? Are you going to murder me? Are you going to, abduct me? Are you going to whatever? What are you doing? And then one of the tall blonde males stepped forward and said, no, we've come to invite you to fly the craft. So that was so random and weird. But what happened next was he said that we believe you've got something, I'm going to say special, or some sort of thing about me, that if I have it, it's like a test, like a challenge. If I have it, whatever it was, I will be able to fly the craft. It's an automatic thing. So it was like them testing to see if I had it, something special, whether it's DNA or spiritual or energetic or I don't know.
Welcome everybody to Viking Superpowers. I'm really excited today talking to Rowan Bo, who I've become friends with over the last couple of weeks. She's from Brisbane, where I grew up, Australia, Queensland, Australia. And she's got quite a varied background. She's been a meditation instructor and an art therapist and an artist. She's been a lifelong extraterrestrial contactee since 1980, when she was only 8 years old and I was 22. And she's had an incredible range of experiences, unearthly experiences with at least 3 species of aliens, beings who've tracked her on her travels into different countries and throughout Australia. And I know that includes experiences in Africa, England, and many Australian cities. She's a well-known speaker. She's written a fantastic book. The book's called The Travellers, an Experiencer's Guide to Extraterrestrial Disclosure. So she's got a terrific Facebook group, UFO/UAP Disclosure.
Australia.
Is that?
Yeah.
Australia. Australia.
Australia.
Okay. Not Austria.
No, you can't not say it like that.
She's also had, as many of us have had, her interest the extraterrestrial UAP, UFO scene. We also seem to be given to psychic experiences, paranormal experiences, and Rowan's experienced past life recall, which is a bit more unusual, remembering different past lives. She's also, this is for me as the Viking guy, this really fascinates me. She's witnessed troll-like beings. So that's something I'd like to talk to you about. And she's also been on board a UFO with the tall blondes, who I'm also really interested in, the Nordics. And she was even invited to have a fly of it, which...
That's right.
That is the coolest thing. That's certainly what I would do if I was up there. I'd go, can I have a go?
Yeah. Well, that was completely unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome, Rowan.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. So could you just start off relating what happened to you when you're 8? How things kicked off for you?
Well, I don't remember the exact time it happened, but I would be laying in bed and I would be really scared. So I would have the blankets pulled up over my head because I would know that I would be visited by what I call the short, dark, hooded beings. So they were probably about 1 metre tall, and they'd have really wide heads, and they were all wearing matching black, three of them were wearing matching black hooded robes. And so all I could see was their faces, and they had black skin, what I thought was black skin, dark skin, because, of course, it was always dark. And they would actually take me out of my bedroom into where I don't remember where exactly we would go to, but they would demonstrate a few different things to me there. I don't recall them ever talking, but when they arrived, I would have to leave. I would have to go with them. There was no option, even if I was hiding underneath the blankets. And so I would know before they would get there that it was going to be the night that they would get there. That would, so I was able to sense that they would be coming, and I would have to leave with them. So I don't remember ever being on a spaceship with them or anything like that, but there was one time where my mum was saying to me, "Why are you walking like that?" And I was walking like because that's how they walked. We would all walk together. I was only short and they were short, so I was only 8. And so whatever we were doing, we were going somewhere and they would demonstrate with us. I would have to go and learn. So what they would do was they would actually show me how they could slow down time, so everything would go really slowly, or they would fasten time, so everything would go very fast. So that was their demonstration. They were almost like time travelers or time masters or something. I think they were able to do that with their mind. I don't remember any technology ever being used. And I can't remember. There was 3 things that they did. One was the time. Another thing I can't remember. And I haven't had hypnotherapy or anything. And the third thing was when they would put me back into my bed and they would actually make the room spin around. I know lots of people probably already heard this before, but it doesn't make sense why they have the power to make my room spin so fast that I couldn't get any bearings of. Well, I would have to lay in my bed with my eyes shut. It was sickening. If I opened my eyes, my room would be spinning, and I'd have to wait for that effect to finish. So this went on and on and on and on, time and time and time again. So I was able to know that this was an ongoing thing. This wasn't just a one-off visitation. They would come and they would demonstrate one of 3 things. There were 3 beings, 3 things. So when I was staying in my sister's bedroom, I noticed that they wouldn't come. So I actually I forced my parents to move me back into my sister's bedroom, and they had to buy bunks for us because they were like, "Why do you want to move in there? You've got your own room." And I'm like, "Yeah, but in that room, I'm getting taken by things, It only ever happened in that bedroom, and they would come through the wall. They wouldn't come through the door. So somehow they were able to make a portal, and I would have to leave with them. So we would get me out of my bed and they would leave. So there was one time I do remember where they actually gave me an implant, and I had an operation on the back of my neck, and I was trying to get my mum to look at it. I was imagining just this bloody, gory mess. There was nothing there except a lump that's there. So when I moved into my sister's bedroom, it all stopped. So I was able to break the cycle then of whatever was happening. So this went on for months and months. It wasn't a one-off opportunity. They were getting me. They picked me, and I believe. So when Mum bought the Morris Sendak book, Where the Wild Things Are, I thought that was a guidebook that Mum was going to teach me. Finally, someone's written a book, I thought, about what was happening to me. Because the pictures of the beings look like they're on the front, because there was one in particular that has like hair, and I actually thought that was exactly what the beings looked like, except they didn't have teeth, they didn't have horns. So very wide mouth, big eyes, no ears that I can remember or hair, because they just wore a hood. So, but what's interesting is I've actually done my own research, and there's instances of beings carved into Hadrian's Wall and into votive carvings all the way down to Italy and all the way to Germany and all around Europe that are 2,000 years old, of these what's called genii cuculati, which means hooded spirits. So there's always 3 of them. And they're usually carved also with the lady, or like the mother goddess, or a female form, or like an apparition, I would wonder, So this, I called them time travelers. I've had to name them time travelers. I believe that that's what they were. So, yes, and lots of other people around the world have actually had contact with these three beings. But interestingly, they were like a patron saint of children back in 2,000 years ago. I mean, patron saint of the health of children. So that's all very interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's extremely interesting. And I'm thinking two things. One is that I've got a book called Field Guide to Extraterrestrials, and it's sketches made by quite a competent artist based on many such accounts over years and years and years. And the plethora of different looking creatures is astounding. Some of them
Mm.
are seriously weird looking, and there is little short, dark skinned, furry ones like that.
They weren't
And
furry, they were just hooded. Yeah.
do you think did they have hair?
I never saw hair, only hoods.
Did they have a sort of a grey alien type face at all, like
No.
big eyes?
Actually, two other people that I've found around the world, one was in California and one's in Sydney, they called them the face of a gorilla. So it's like a
Mm,
gorilla looking face. It's really leathery, dark skin.
yeah. You know, the kids in Zimbabwe at the Ariel school reported meeting a being who was very black, and you know, there's
I didn't
African
know.
kids and white South African Afrikaans type kids there, but both the different kids they said he was black, meaning not like an African person, like really black, and
Mm,
jet black hair, long
mm.
hair mostly at the back,
Oh,
and small, like 3 foot tall. And they
mm.
looked into their eyes, and the beings really got inside their minds. And as adults, a lot of these people have come forward and talked about that same experience. But in the Viking stories, in what's called the Edda, um, these old books I've got about the myths, it talks about the dark elves, and it says that they live under the earth, and they're sort of like the dwarfs. You know, the story of dwarves. It seems to be the same being, and they're sort of a bit negative. There's like light elves who are like really good and bright and shiny and live out in the stars, and then there's other ones that live under the earth. But you know, there's not really negative stories. There's a few stories about dwarves. They're not really super nice, but
Well, it was scary, definitely scary. I'm not going to say they never hurt me,
mm,
except I was scared, obviously. But you get scared at everything that's different. So in every experience that I've had, it's always been scary, but it doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt you. I mean,
so
a
were they
cat's,
mostly just teaching you? Did you
yeah.
feel?
So when I believed right from age 8 that they were teaching me that reality as we think it doesn't exist, like we
Mm,
think it does. So they were able to. It's more elastic and plastic than we think it is. So they were able to spin my room around, and that's how I was getting taught.
mm,
And they were able to move time backwards and forward. I assume backwards and forwards. So there are reports of brownies, what they call brownies in Scotland, short, dark hooded ones as well. So yes,
yeah,
it is a
right.
common a myth.
Yeah, well, I was telling you about my friend, Professor Arteman Jakobsson from the University of Iceland. He wrote a book called The Troll Inside You, paranormal events in medieval history. It's something like that, but it's essentially about all these words that are used in the sagas are not as clear in the originals as what we later started to think about, dwarves and elves and trolls and all these things. They're just words, but we associate them with later medieval versions. But he says, and he's a great expert, he says they're often their behavior and their descriptions are very different to the way we think of, like, giants don't seem to always be very big, and trolls can be even like gods, or they can be humans with exceptional powers, or they can be a strange, big, ugly creature. So, and he said to me, you know, people have always seen these sort of things, and we call them ET or whatever. They called them elves and trolls, but it seems like people are having a real experience, as you obviously had.
Yeah, I was awake, so I wasn't actually asleep. So I would be awake all night, and then they would drop me back in my bed, and then this thing would start up. Not all the time. So,
Mm,
but point was is that I was awake. You know when you're asleep, and you know when you're awake. I know I was
yeah.
awake. So, and then I'd have to go
Paul,
to school, and never not sleeping some nights all night.
yeah,
Mm.
I can understand that. Well, my friend Paul Wallace, in his Eden series of books, talks about being taken out in the night. He sort of, at that, round about that age, he was living in England and being
Mm.
led out into the forest at night, and there was other kids there, and they were being taught. It's
Mm.
really amazing that you've had the same experience.
I haven't had
The
hypnotherapy or
fact that you remember it.
hypnotism. Exactly.
Mm,
I think, gosh, I have so many memories of the times I was being taken that I don't really want to do hypnosis, because I think, oh my God, I'd have to double my memory capacity. And I just rather know then that what I remember is my pure memories, and not anybody imposing their,
mm.
thoughts on them or anything like that.
And it's
I've
really
been really
great that
careful with that. Yeah.
you've put your memories down while you're still young, because when you get to my age, I'm thankful to my young self. When I was 40, I started to write down all my experiences, because now, getting towards 70, I sort of knew if I don't write them down, then when I get to this age, I'm going to start thinking, did that really happen, or am I just an old man fantasizing about stuff? And, I try to be honest with memory, but the longer it is, I'm starting to be able to easily remember 50 years ago. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a gulf. And, you know, the organic thing, it's remarkably trustworthy, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I
So,
actually started to write my stuff down when I was 30. So when I was writing my recent book, I was able to actually find exact dates that things happened,
mhm.
and the exact place that I was, and the exact time of day, and what I was thinking, and all of the time around it, what I was doing. So that was really helpful with actually investigating other UFO sightings, for example. But I didn't know anything about UFOs when I was 8, so I never really
Mm.
thought of them as being extraterrestrials, because I didn't know anything about any of that.
Yeah, so this was in 1980. Did it happen just in 1 year, or do you think it was happening for a few years?
Oh no, I think it would be about 3 months, I'd say, out of 1 year.
Mm.
So we moved into a particular place, and then it started to occur after we moved in, and after I was supposed to have
Mm.
been big enough to get my own bedroom. So I think I was in year second, so
Mm.
not kindergarten, maybe year one or year two.
Year one,
So
right.
however old I was then.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So
let's skip to when you first started to see craft and when you were taken on board craft. I'm really
yeah.
looking forward to hearing about those experiences. And, just for the sake of the video, I'm amongst other interests I've had during my life, had a strong aviation interest and a bit of a background in the Royal Australian Air Force cadets. So I'm really interested in hearing about the craft and what they look like and what they smelt like and how they functioned, and
Well,
especially somebody who's been a pilot like you who's actually flown one.
yeah. I had two incidences in my teens, which I have no memory of, in that my mum said she saw a UFO when we were about 13 at our campsite. That's all I know about that. Mum doesn't remember anything about it. I've written that into my book just to record everything. And when I was 17, I actually had a missing pregnancy. Don't remember anything about it, except that it was missing when I went to the clinic. And then when I was 19, I'd moved up to Noosa, and I was outside one night. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and I remember the next day was supposed to be a public holiday, but because I worked at a shop on Hastings Street in Noosa, I had to work that public holiday because it was a busy day. So I went outside at about 9 o'clock at night, and I had to hang washing out. So I was actually standing at the washing line, and it was interesting. I just went to Noosa last week, and I took photos of the exact place where I was, and I was able to get a screenshot of the pinpoint exactly where I lived then, and which might right next to a beach, right near the rocks. And I'll tell you about why that's relevant as well in a moment. But what came out of the sky was a min-min light, what I thought was a min-min light. And actually came down and was interacting with me. It was about a size of slightly larger than a bowling ball. So it was about, a foot wide, say, and it was a solid orb of light, and it was interacting with me. It was coming backwards and forwards as if it was like playing with me a little bit and gaining my trust, if that makes sense. And then it actually hit me in the face, hit me on the left side of the face. And then I realised when I sort of came to that I was rising upwards. So I was already in the air. Something was pulling me up towards, when I looked up, I could see a rectangular shaped spacecraft in the air. And it had red coils underneath, and it was a rectangular size. Like I said, it was probably about the size of a caravan or a Winnebago, that sort of size. And when I was getting drawn upwards, I don't remember anything about where I was, apart from being all of a sudden in the sky, levitating up towards this craft. And when I looked up, like I say, there was red coils underneath, or red, what I'm going to say, it was like a double hull. So it had like a grill underneath the main craft, and then there'd be like some sort of, construction underneath to hold these grills in place, if you get what I mean. So then I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is like 1991. So I was 19, and I thought, we don't have this this is not human tech. This is clearly not human stuff. So, and I didn't really know anything about anything to do with aliens or UFOs. I've never seen a UFO before. So this was my first time I'd ever seen a UFO. And when then I could hear coming out of the craft in my mind, don't look down, look up. So I knew I was getting telepathically spoken to, don't look down, look up. So in other words, calm down. And I all of a sudden realised, oh gosh, I'm not calm. I'm being calm, Hang on, I don't want to be calm. This is really scary. So somehow I kind of had an emotional disconnect up until then. And then I thought to myself, right, I have to really remember everything I see, everything that I see from now on. I have to remember everything. And so I went up into like a hatch, say, at the bottom of the craft, and it ended up in the main deck of a rectangular spacecraft. And one side there were two white swivel seats, and a viewing screen, or like a windscreen. And I think there might have been other windows around, but I just was,
How did you get into the craft?
Just up through the centre. And when I went up...
Was it up through those coily things, or...?
Yeah, that was right in the centre. So I didn't get burnt, but I was worried I was going to get burnt because I could actually see the heat waves coming off them.
Was there a hole?
There must have been, yeah. And it was like a hatch, and I came up through it because I was getting levitated up automatically somehow. And somehow then that must have flopped closed or whatever. I don't remember every little detail because I was so shocked, And so in front of me stood two tall blonde females and two tall blonde males. So they must have, I'm 5'3". They must have been at least 2 meters tall each. They weren't really muscular, and they were quite trim, and they were all wearing matching blue suits. So, and they all had really long hair, including me. I had really long hair as well. And when I stood there, I was like this real kind of, are we all related, or is there some sort of what did you is this some sort of, this is just in my brain, I was thinking, is this some sort of reading thing, or is this some sort of relation thing? Or so there was this slight disconnect of just like, what is going on? And one of the tall blonde females, who I thought was the commander, she actually spoke to me first. So what I thought to myself as I arrived up on their deck, I thought, these people aren't from here. This is 1991 or whatever, and this is going to be I'm going to be the first person that these people had ever seen on Earth, to come all the way here, pick me up and like, hi, welcome to planet Earth. So basically that blurted out of my mouth. And I thought, oh gosh, how embarrassing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to just show how nice Earth girls are. So I reached over to try and shake somebody's hand or something. And they were all like, oh my God, get her away from us, So this woman was really strict, I felt. And she said, if you touch us, it will kill you. And I don't know whether she had anything in her hand or whatever, but I was just like, oh my God, this is not the way that I had thought it might go originally. I don't know what I thought, but I thought, well, they were kind of threatening me a little bit. And then, so I was really scared after that, as if I wasn't already scared, because I was just like, when you're nervous and you're just sort of acting through that nervousness. And when what blurted out of my mouth next was like, are you going to kill me? Are you going to take me away? Are you going to steal me? Are you going to murder me? Are you going to, abduct me? Are you going to rape me? Are you going to whatever? What are you doing? And then one of the tall blonde males stepped forward and said, no, we've come to invite you to fly the craft. So that was so random and weird. But what happened next was he said that we believe you've got something, I'm going to say special, or some sort of thing about me, that if I have it, it's like a test, like a challenge. If I have it, whatever it was, I will be able to fly the craft. It's an automatic thing. So it was like them testing to see if I had it, something special, whether it's DNA or spiritual or energetic or I don't know. So, and I actually forgot to write that bit into my book because I thought to myself, of course I don't have anything. That's ridiculous, So I basically then, so okay, fine, I'll attempt to fly this craft. Clearly it's not going to work and you'll just drop me back home again. So meanwhile I'm up like 300 to 400 meters in the air in this random spacecraft. So I think I must have I sat in the left-hand swivel seat, and the tall blonde male, who was really extremely good looking, when you like get so flustered and embarrassed that someone's so good looking that you're sweaty and you're embarrassed and you're over the toply whatever. Anyway, this is the effect that they had on me anyway, these beautiful people. And I think all I can remember is maybe I put my hand on a touch screen. Don't know. I don't remember. Unfortunately, I don't remember that exact thing. And nothing happened. And I thought, oh, okay, that's that then. And he said, yes, you're flying the craft. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Nothing's happening. And he said, stand up and look down. So I had to actually, because I was so small, that I had to stand up and look down the windscreen, and my son's just coming in, sorry. And I could then see fields drifting under the craft. So we were going in a northwesterly direction. And when you look on the map, you can actually see that that's the only way that we could go because of the way the headland went. So we had to go in that direction. So I just knew that it's always been that. Noosa. Yes. Wow. So where I was living there was no other place to go. So I actually had to go northwesterly direction. And then I could, like I say, see the fields and fences and trees and everything going underneath this vehicle that I was flying. And he said, oh, well, you think that's fast? This is fast. And then we swapped. He sat next to me and I was standing up next to him then on the right-hand side of him, and he was sitting in the left-hand swivel seat. And the other pilot was in the right-hand seat. He didn't say anything. We didn't have any communication at all. So he must have been helping me. I don't know. Anyway. And then he said, you think that's fast? This is fast. So he actually then shot the craft in such a speed that all you saw was blurring underneath. And I was like, oh, right, so that's how you fly it, radio. Mm-hmm. And then the time kept on going on and on and on and hours. And I was like, oh, God, this is not a flight demonstration anymore. I realised that this is actually like an abduction, you know. So I finally, because when they said, you know, if you touch us, it'll kill you, I thought that they were referring to the blue spacesuits that they were wearing, that maybe they were somehow electric. So I might have gotten zapped dead if I accidentally brushed past one. So I was really careful not to touch these people. But when I was standing next to this really good-looking guy, they actually had really light blue eyes and long blonde hair, and he was clean. They were, you know, the men were clean shaven, so I was able to sort of stand at eye level as him, but I was too frightened to look at him, you know. Anyway, but then I was like, oh God, I've got to stop this abduction thing. So I kept on asking him, you know, can we stop? What are we doing? Come on, you know, let's go home. And finally I reached over and I actually grabbed hold of his arm and I squeezed his arm. I thought, what's a safe place on somebody's body? So I realised that it's like the bicep area. So I squeezed it and I said, excuse me, but can we go home now? And he said, yes. And I was like, oh, thank God. He said, but first we're going to put an implant in the back of your neck, which is exactly the same place as that I had that other one, which I didn't even remember at the time. And then the two tall blonde females came over and they'd sort of took over the mission, and they'd said to me, you know, we're going to, I thought it was like a gold filament, like a rectangular gold filament they were somehow going to place in there, and they were going to shave the back of my neck hair. So I don't want to have a haircut like that. I hate those haircuts. Anyway, then instantly I woke up in my bed and I was like, oh my God, did I get one of them horrible haircuts? And I was feeling in the back of my, and I was like, no, I can't feel any stubble. And then I felt that same spot that I've always had in the back of my head since I was young, and only recently I realised that that's all related to these beings that I've had contact with. But I woke up in my bed like that sort of thing, and I was like, and then I was thinking, hang on, I remember us just being on craft, so it wasn't a dream or anything like that. So I had remembered them talking to me and saying, is there anything you want to ask us? And I said, well, yes, where are you from? And they said, we're travellers. And I said, yes, but what star system are you from? Thinking they mustn't understand me. And they said, we're travellers. I was like, what kind of answer is that? Doesn't make sense. But then I got this idea that maybe they're tourists, like from Sweden or Switzerland. So that was what was going through my mind. It was if they were, and I was like, are these guys tourists? You know, this is, yeah. But then when I woke up, I'd been awake all night. So it was daylight then. And I was like, God, I've got to go to work now again without having slept all night. So I rolled over and I thought my boyfriend at the time wasn't going to be there because it was a public holiday. I thought he was going to be gone all night, but he was there. He'd come home. And he said to me, you weren't home when I got home. And I'm like, yeah, sure I was. You know, obviously you're wrong. I couldn't explain anything to him of what had happened, obviously. It was too out there and too bizarre. And then he made me get up and I had to go and prepare a cup of coffee for him or whatever. He was a bit coercive. So I went upstairs and I put the radio on. And first thing that said was a guy was fishing on the rocks near my house, and he'd seen not a rectangular craft with red coils. He'd seen like a mothership, which was a long cylindrical, he called it a fluorescent light, which was bright green. He'd seen two of them go either into the ocean at Noosa or behind the ocean or like on the horizon. And then I'd asked the tall blondes, will I ever see you again? And they said, yes, you will see us again. I thought that they meant that day. So I spent the whole day at work looking out for them the whole day. I was like, they're coming here. Where are they? And I saw 4 people that matched their description, but they had short hair. And I realised I'm not going to, I thought I would remember what they looked like forever, but I don't. Then I realised I don't remember what they looked like. And in the months after that, I actually started to compost. This was in 1991, before they even had, no one knew about composting. I started to recycle. We didn't have recycling back then. I started to really care, and garden and learn how to sort of survive and all this sort of stuff. So I think that they taught me somehow that as well. So I do remember coming back home. We were all sitting closely together in a spacecraft of some description. I'm not really sure if it was a different area of that same spacecraft that we were already in, or whether it was a different place. A different one coming back from wherever we went to. And if you draw a line northwest from Noosa, it actually goes to Pine Gap and Mount Zeal in that direction.
Really?
So I can't say if I'd gone there or not, but
Pine Gap's like a long way though, isn't it? It's Pine Gap in the outback.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So I don't know how fast we were going. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't feel like we went under space because I could still see the landscape going under us. I didn't feel like we went to another country, but I wouldn't have even known how fast we were going and that sort of stuff. It's fast enough that I could see the streaking landscape because I was actually standing up and freaking out, where are we going,
Yeah.
But I have found other people who have seen similar spacecrafts at Noosa around that, either before or after that time. They'd said they'd seen something that looks like a lamp, light lamp, what are they called? A street light, which is like rectangular. And there's other ones that they said that they'd seen like what looked like a moon coming out of the sky, an orb. And it's so yeah, there were lots of descriptions around that area of similar looking things moving through trees. Some of them had heat coming off them. So yeah, I was able to find similar stories correlating mine. But then it goes on, because I didn't actually see those 2 green motherships, but I actually saw them in Africa and Zimbabwe. When I travelled over there, they were travelling overhead of where I was in the most random, isolated places. I saw them twice over there. And another time I was in England, and I had a spacecraft mirroring our car for hours overhead. So, yeah, they whoever they are, somehow can find me wherever I am. So I must have had that implant, even though I have had scans of my neck, but I've never, I can't see anything in there. Doesn't mean it's not there, because clearly they can find me no matter where I am.
Yeah, well, anything is possible with super high technology. They say it's similar to magic, but yeah, they'd have something that's opaque. So, our sensing devices, X-rays, whatever, can't pick it up yet. Maybe it'll start to happen, where so many people have talked about implants, and I've only seen 1 or 2 instances where, you get those photos of some thin wire and somebody. Never goes anywhere though. I always get frustrated with reports like that. I think, and what happened then? Like,
Yeah.
what sort of metal was it? Did they test it in all sorts of tests? But
Yeah.
have you ever seen? There's a show. Steven Spielberg made this TV series, very scary one, and I think it was in the 90s, and it sort of starts off with the Roswell crash, and it follows generations of these people who interacted with the beings and who got mated with them, and they keep getting visited all the time, and he makes it a very scary thing. So they're always terrified that these beings are coming, and it's always traumatic. So he did that obviously because he wanted to make it a sort of a horror.
I think it was
But
called Taken. I tried to
yes,
start to
that's it.
watch it, and I just couldn't get past the first episode because they'd purposely chosen people that looked similar. And I'm like, if they've all got blonde hair, blue eyes, I don't know which one you're talking about because they all look the same. So I just was like, I couldn't get past. I'm like, who is this again? Ugh, I just,
So did you, was the, could you recognize different faces?
uh, in that movie, no.
No, in
Oh,
getting back to the ones you met, the real ones.
no. I wish that I could because it frustrates me not knowing who I had contact with, apart from the fact that they're tall, blonde with blue eyes. And
Yeah,
my actual new partner, he used to have long blonde hair, and he's got really ice blue eyes, and he's got a real slim frame too. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh,
right.
he reminds me of the tall blonde, and that's why. It's not like I started to like him because of that, but it's just a coincidence that it's a bit of a backstory. But when I was 3, that song Fernando came out. Remember? Can you hear the drums,
Mm,
Fernando? I
yep.
actually thought that I didn't realize anything about war when I was 3. I actually thought that song was about the afterlife. Can you hear the drums, Fernando? Blah blah blah. Anyway, it talks about. I thought it was talking about a midlife, a past life review, like a life review,
Ah,
because I remembered being my between life. So at age 3, I was remembering my between lives life.
ah, yeah,
And I thought that song was about that. But do you remember Agnetha? She had
yes,
I always thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world.
yeah. She's the classic spunky Swedish girl,
Yeah.
and
And I used to want to look like her, and I wanted to have my hair exactly like hers. So,
yeah. No, I was a big ABBA fan in the '70s until I became a cool surfy, and then I wouldn't admit being into ABBA at all. I was just into
yeah.
heavy metal, but in the '90s they made that big comeback, so I was able to come out of the closet and say, yeah, I always liked this
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
I, what a wonderful story. I mean, just that story is worth its weight in gold because the way you tell it, it's very believable. Like a lot of things you said then, I really like. The sort of I could just see you, a excitable, a bit scared teenage girl, but with that, shyness around this guy, and all those things ring true. It's the sort of that's the sort of thing that makes a story make you sit up and think, oh, this really sounds like an actual account, and I do
Yeah.
believe you. There's
Well, when I
something
was
about
rewriting my book, I was rewriting it, and I actually read that how it felt right standing next to him, but I was too shy to look at him. And I could feel a flush coming up when I was just reading about it. And I just felt that
sort of relived
embarrassed
it.
flush coming only a few weeks ago when I was rereading that part of my book. And I actually revisited that feeling of being so, shy
Yeah.
and thinking this is something to do with sex or not. I don't know. I don't know. There was nothing that I remember that anything like that happened. Like lots of other people say that they remember being on a table and things happened to them. When I never had that happen to me,
Mm.
that I remember anyway. But I did have 2 missing pregnancies, and I
So the pregnancies, were they like a doctor or a test or something said you were pregnant?
yes, and I actually was in an abortion clinic having 2 abortions, and uh, uh, several years apart, and they said that there's no fetus in there when clearly there was before, or else I wouldn't be in there. It wasn't a phantom pregnancy or anything like that.
Wow.
But that's the only time. But I don't have memories of uh, any being taken and anything happening to me about that. But what also happened was when I came back from overseas. So I'd gone to Africa and seen those two
the motherships.
Motherships, for want of a better word, in two different places a week apart. And they were, like I said, the first one, we were actually camping in, it's called the Zimbabwe Basin, I suppose it would be. Zambia, Zimbabwe, and the river is called something else Dunning was said, Zambezi. So the Zambezi River breaks the two countries, separates the two countries. And one part of the Zambezi River just opens into a big floodplain, like from horizon to horizon. So we were doing a canoe safari on there, and there's no settlements there that I know of anyway, because the whole lot is just a water plain, and the islands sort of move because some of them are there was hippos there and crocodile and elephants. So the elephants, the grass was higher than, like, taller than me, and then there was just shifting sand islands. So no, it was only the locals that knew exactly where we were. So we had locals there guiding our canoe safari. I think there was like 5 or say 6 canoes, and all of us people from overseas, we were on this 5-day canoe safari, canoeing our way. It's crazy. I would never do that again. Anyway, on the first night, we actually camped. So the locals had the tent, so we all had to put up our own tents, and then they fed us whatever it was. They would get a barbecue going or whatever it was. And so we were watching fireflies. I've never seen fireflies before in Australia. It's not a common thing. And then somebody said, "Oh, there's a satellite." And it's like, are we looking at fireflies or a satellite? But then there was a white orb, say, flying directly above us and going towards the mountains. So the mountains are all on the horizon. And somebody else said, "What's that over there?" And on the horizon was a green fluorescent light going across like that. And this orb was going towards it. And I was like, oh, my God, I know exactly what that is from that newser. The guy on the radio, he was actually the disc jockey. He had actually been fishing the night before, and he was the one that had seen this UFO that he called a mothership. So as soon as I said, "Oh, I think it must be a UFO," it disappeared behind a tiny cloud. And I was like, oh, my God, it actually heard me. That's how it felt at the time. And then a week later, we were in the Drakensberg Mountains. So I've got the dates because I wrote everything down, And the Drakensberg Mountains was exactly where Elizabeth Clara had been taken. Apparently, I only found this out whilst researching my book, in 1956. And she went on to another planet and had a baby with Akon. Exactly the same place that I'd seen this satellite, and a second satellite a week later. So I saw, and I was like, "Oh, there's another satellite. How weird is that?" And this is in daytime. And then behind it comes this massive mothership, like moving that way. So this light was like that, and they would like that. And I was like, oh, my God. And this thing was massive. When I say massive, it was above the clouds, and it was stretched between the clouds, and it would be about that round. So on either side, you could actually see, it was like optic fibre. It was completely smooth. And you know how optic fibre, the ends are lighter? And it was like glass. And it was huge. It was moving like that, sort of straight across. So between two clouds, that's how big it was on the above the clouds.
1,000 feet.
I wouldn't even know how to judge how big it was. Yeah, it was massive. So that was the third time I'd heard that, but actually seen it.
That always grabs me in reports when you hear about craft that are 10 feet across or 30 feet across or 60 feet, and then somebody says, "Yeah, and then I saw this thing and it was like, thousands of feet across."
Yeah.
Like, what? And there's so many real big ones.
Yeah, and the first one was in Zimbabwe, where that aerial school was. So,
yeah, right.
There's obviously stuff going on over there too.
Yes, well, they certainly, they must have cloaking devices. They must have remember years ago there was a real thing on the net about people picking up craft using like infrared or ultraviolet. There was it was a thing about like there's all these it's just a blue sky. And then when we look at it through sort of almost like night vision, but I think it was infrared, and suddenly there's like they're everywhere.
Really?
And that sort of freaked me out. Yeah, I just thought, oh
Yeah,
my God, like what a concept.
yeah,
Basically, they're saying the sky's full of them, but we can't see them.
that's
Visual
exactly,
light.
yeah.
And I had this bizarre thing happen in Iceland where I made a little 1 minute video for my channel sitting by the bay in Reykjavik. And, I've got my Icelandic jumper and a beanie, and I'm reading out a story about Odin and these characters flying. And in the sky above me, it's perfectly blue, and suddenly this perfect circle appears in the cloud, and it's got a little perfect circle in the middle, and
Mm.
then it just fades away. And I've shown people it, and some people are going, "Oh my God," and other people are going, "Oh yeah, it's just a cloud." But every time I look at it, I think that looks like something that's cloaked, and it was on to me what I was talking about, and then the heat of it made that instant cloud, and then they became aware that they'd left the cloud, and they went, "Oh, back off," and they sort of got away.
Yeah, well,
It was as if they just sort of touched the level of um, atmospheric condensation or something where it suddenly made
yeah,
a cloud, and it was the round shape with a round shape inside, just like
yeah,
a saucer would with some kind of thing in the middle. And then
yeah.
they just went, let's get out of here.
I don't know. Well, because what happened with me when I said in England, when we went from London to Scotland, my dad's Scottish. And I was born over there actually. And following our car was two concentric circles of light or more. I'm not really sure. I just remember two. The lights going one way, lots of lights, and lights going the opposite way in the middle, and then them both going in and out like this. But that was it. I could see the lights, but it was within cloud or mist. So it somehow was generating its own mist, or I was looking. It was like it's projected onto mist, or it was hidden through mist. So we were underneath it, and it was following our car for miles and hours as well.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was able to wind the window down and look up and see these lights going in the sky following our car to the point where I thought, I got so perfectly aligned with our car that I thought we were projecting it from our car onto clouds. But I couldn't figure out how that could possibly work. And then it wasn't all the time in one spot. So when it would disappear from there, I was able to shuffle across the back seat and wind the window down and look out that way. And there it is there. So I did have missing time during that night, I believe, because I wrote travel diaries. That was in 93. And when I went to Africa, it was in 96. So it was only a couple of years after all this other stuff happened. And so I think I turned 21 over there, actually, when I went back for my birthday, my 21st in England. And we stopped at a rest station, like a service station to rest. Dad said we're going to sleep. We were doing an all-nighter trying to drive all the way up from London to Scotland. And we'd seen this light in the sky. And when we went to the rest stop, I'd gone to the loo and come back again. And Dad's like, "Where were you?" And I'm like, "I'm just over there, in the rest station or whatever." And Dad's like, "Ah." He went and then came back, and then we started to drive again. I'm like, "Dad, why aren't we stopping to sleep for a couple of hours?" And he said, "Oh, we've already done that." So I must have had like a missing time then. And I saw Mary Rodwell, and we just did like an hour-long meditation to hopefully unlock and unblock blocks and locks that I've got. And I don't necessarily 100% trust this, but I feel like that the tall blondes came and I was taken back onto their craft there, but I don't 100% know because it's only a fairly new memory that's been uncovered.
Thanks so much for being so open about this. And I really want people to buy the book. I'll put it up here on the screen.
Yeah.
But I think the more people like yourself come forward and just straight out tell the story, the harder it is to say, oh, this is just one
Yeah.
person who's tripping or getting
Yeah.
attention, or the sort of all
Yeah.
the slights that they come up with. But your stories really have the ring of truth. I
Yeah. I
believed
don't.
you when I asked you to come on
Yeah.
here, but listening to you, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
yep, this is fair income. This is a real fair income
Yeah.
lifelong thing. And
Yeah, I had the Greys contacted me for 20 years after that too. So I was on board their Black
I'm
Triangle.
sort of jealous because like I told you when you interviewed me for your radio station, I've had some reasonably significant encounters early on there. It's like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, why haven't you been inducting me or showing me? You know, I often I've stood out under the stars and gone, what? Like, how come all these dudes get
Ah,
to see and you're not showing
yeah,
it to me? The only
yeah.
time I could literally say I believe I did see just an orb was when I was in Sweden last year,
Hmm.
and my Swedish friend had taken me to this bit of a renowned freaky sort of area that's called Alsa Oak, Alsa Egg in Sweden, but it means the gods' oaks, the
Ah,
Alsa Aesir. These, you know, what I go on about in my book about these beings that we call them gods, but they're not really gods. They're just really advanced. But all over Sweden, this name Als is everywhere, and it literally means one of these beings. But this place is renowned for lights and crop circles and this sort of stuff. And he
mm,
took me to these stones, and on these two famous stones, and there's this perfect circle within circle, and I really felt the presence of great mystery in that stone. And then as we drove away to go to this other insanely cool place, I was saying to him, you know, I wish I could see a UFO or something. And then it was a clear sky and there was a bit of cloud, and suddenly I saw, and I followed it, and it was bright and white, and then it just winked out. I went, wow, I just saw one.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That's what's happened to me too. You get correlation and you get confirmation, and you know, one
Some
day I
people
was
like you,
asking,
it's always
yeah,
happening to them, you know, it's
yeah.
like,
I was actually asking them as well, and then I went out in the afternoon time, and this was in Sydney when I moved down to Sydney. I knew I was getting lots of contact, and there was three rainbows in the sky, and then the whole sky, day sky, lit up with different coloured lights and stars, and then they all just snapped off, sort of thing. So that was actually showing me that they were real, you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I haven't lacked in far out experiences, and some of the experiences I've come to think they probably were, you know, actual encounters. I just saw them through a religious lens or
yeah,
a psychic lens, but I'm starting to think maybe that happened to me and it's all been wiped out.
yeah, yeah. They've got
Did
those powers somehow.
did you have a near-death experience?
No, I haven't had near death experience, but I have had lots of weird psychic sorts of things where one time I was, yeah, taken back to a whole other time. Another time I left my body
Oh, yeah.
completely. Yeah, sort of weird things where I knew what I would be doing when my dad died, a week before my dad died, and this sort of stuff. So,
You said you're Scottish, your dad's Scottish,
yeah.
and you know about the second sight, of course.
No.
The
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah.
Scots,
Sorry.
the
Yeah.
Highland tradition. It's it's one of those impossible Gaelic words, or something like tub siach, something like that. The seer, and they often talk about somebody who can see that somebody's going to die. It's often a grim sort of thing where the Highlanders absolutely believe that people have this ability, but usually they don't want the ability. But I do think we as a race, the tribe, the Highlanders, the Gaels and the Picts, we're a bit special. And I made a video recently about another great channel where he's talking to this ex-CIA guy who's part Cherokee, And, they're talking about a similar subject to this, and the guy comes out and says, yes, well, in the CIA, we have a special peg in the database. If people are Celtic or Cherokee, it means they usually have psychic abilities, and it flags them.
Really?
Yeah,
Good Lord.
if they join the CIA, it goes up on your file. Oh, Celtic, Cherokee, Celtic,
Really?
Cherokee, bah, bah,
I
bah.
don't doubt that a lot of most First Nations, I mean, if that we're a First Nation, then clearly, most First Nations, Aboriginal, the um, Africans, there's,
Well, we are First Nations. It's
yeah,
just the modern academia says, "Oh no, you're the children of oppressors, so you don't get to be Indigenous." That's
yeah,
just
but
the
we
way
know,
these people think. But that's
yeah,
the Indigenous peoples and other cultures don't think that. They say, "Oh no, you guys are definitely the Indigenous of your land too."
yeah, exactly, yeah,
And thanks so much for coming on. I would really like to talk to you a lot more, but once
yeah.
again, I want to encourage everybody to buy your book. I'll put it up on the screen again, and I'll put the details down below.
Thank you, David.
And look forward to things. I think that Rowan and I are going to do all sorts of exciting things in the future.
Yeah. So keep an ear out for UFO radio on Radio 4EB, which is Brisbane Radio 98.1. Next year, we're going to be doing a second radio show called UFO Radio.
Wow,
We're
that's exciting
interviewing people
news.
like you once a week. So yeah, we'll keep it
Is that on
earmarked for
FM?
next year. Yes,
Oh, good. Well, we're in a bit of a dead zone here, but hopefully I can pick it up, or at least does it stream online, do you think?
it'll be digital as well. Yeah, you can
Oh,
get
great.
it digitally, and it'll link into probably Spotify. It'll get downloaded on Spotify.
Right.
So thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rowan. That really was wonderful. And I'm going to enjoy listening to that again and thinking about it all.
Yeah, thanks so much it all links in, doesn't it, somehow? Okay, thanks a lot.
See
Bye.
you later.